Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a different sort of video and just chat with you all about how planning has exacerbated my struggles with mental health, particularly my anxiety. The past 6 months or so of my life have been really hard, and I've observed that the way I plan in my Hobonichi cousin has enabled me to engage in behaviors that are damaging to my mental health. So I want to chat about why that is and what I am doing to address it both now and into the new year. I anticipate that this video will be quite long, so I've broken it down into 3 parts. The first is this intro and a synopsis of the entire video. The second part, which will be the longest, contains a mental health discussion, and the third is about the new planning strategies I'm implementing to mitigate my anxiety. If you want to skip the mental health discussion, then I recommend listening to the synopsis at the end of this first part, then jumping ahead to the final part. They will give you the gist of the video. The relevant timestamps are in the description below. Next, I want to give 3 quick disclaimers. Firstly, this video contains discussion of mental illness, including anxiety, depression, and intrusive thoughts. Obviously, if you're not down to hear about mental illness or those particular things, then that's cool. Just consider yourself warned. Secondly, I want to make it abundantly clear right off the bat that I am not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that my planner, nor planning in general, is responsible for my mental health or has caused my mental illness. I do not think that the past 6 months have been tough because I was using a Hobonichi cousin or anything. Rather, I want to talk about how my use of my planner has enabled me to engage in certain behaviors that exacerbate my anxiety disorder. I am talking about planning and mental illness in relation to each other, but I am not suggesting a causal relationship. Despite what planning companies would have us believe, these products simply do not have the power to change your life. They cannot, do not, and will not make or break you. Thirdly, I want to define productivity for the purposes of this video. It's a buzzword with strong connotations, and I think it's important to clarify that when I am talking about my productivity or being unproductive, I am not talking about like being a girl boss or min-maxing my time or anything severe. I'm normally referring to one of 2 things. So firstly, I'll be referring to basic life tasks, so chores, pet care, errands, work, the miscellaneous things like we adults have to do to function and to take care of ourselves. And secondly, I'm usually referring to writing or creative tasks in general, such as YouTube. I am a writer and I am working on my first novel manuscript, and it's hard. I will spare you the details of my writing life, but suffice it to say, when I'm discussing productivity, I'm very much referring to tasks and goals that are important to me, that make me happy, that I want and need to do, but that I struggle to do. Now with that out of the way, I want to summarize my thoughts on this topic to provide like my thesis statement, if you will. So what I have observed over the last 6 years, and especially these past 6 months, is that my planner has little to no effect on whether or not I am completing tasks and meeting my goals. That is, writing down a task on a daily to-do list does not make me any more or less likely to complete it. Moreover, my planner serves as a sort of litmus test for my mental well-being. The less I'm using my planner, the happier I am likely to be, and conversely, the more I'm using my planner, the less happy I am likely to be. And this holds true for productivity as well, because my happiness and my productivity are closely associated. And let me reiterate, it is not that my planner is making me unhappy. Rather, it is that I can tell that I'm in a bad place if I'm spending copious amounts of time in my planner, if I'm spending copious amounts of time planning my future, thinking about my future, thinking about like tasks, that sort of thing. This is like counterintuitive, right? We use planners in the hopes that they will make us more productive and possibly happier. And this should be, I think, especially true for someone like myself who really loves planners and really loves stationery. So I reflected on why that is, and what I concluded is this. For me, planning disguises procrastination and overthinking as productivity, thus enabling me to avoid doing tasks that, in one way or another, cause me anxiety. Since, for me, the only way to overcome my anxiety is to do the very thing causing it, planning exacerbates my anxiety and, in turn, my depression. It encourages me to analyze and strategize and plot every aspect of my life, from daily to-do lists to yearly goals. And the more I think about how or when or why I should do something, the less I actually do. The more I think, the slower I am to take action, if I take action at all. Consequently, for 2023, I will no longer be daily planning, and I'm implementing some changes to limit the amount of time I spend planning and thinking about my future in general. If you want to jump to the third part, then you can go ahead and hear about those changes specifically. But for now, I'm actually going to start talking about why I'm doing this, like how I came to this conclusion. So this all started because I turned 25 last week, and in the lead up to that, like milestone birthday, I spent a lot of time reflecting on the past 4 or so years. And suffice it to say, they've been bad, like just not good, both because of the pandemic and because of other mundane miseries, the details about which I will spare you. And I knew, like, while I was living through those years that I, like, wasn't happy. Like, I was conscious of it, but I didn't know the extent, I think, of my unhappiness until recently, when I really looked back on it and tried to understand, like, why. Again, that's sort of a work in progress, and I will spare you the details. But in the process of reflecting, I asked myself, like, when was the last time you felt happy? When was the last good time of your life? And the answer for me was fall of 2019, which is when I returned to college to complete my bachelor's degree. I had, after graduating high school, had gone to college and gotten an associate's, and then I took about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, off of college to pursue writing, gaming and esports writing, which went well. Like, I moved to Los Angeles, it was the whole thing, but then I decided that I wanted to go back to college, and that's what I did. The 2 years before and the years since fall 2019 were tough, but I had this, like, little pocket of time in late 2019 and early 2020 where I really felt like I was on track, for lack of a better term. I felt fulfilled. I felt like I was progressing in a direction I wanted to go. I felt like I was growing as a person, and, like, just in general, I felt happy. And I was hardly using a planner at all. Again, I wasn't happy because I wasn't using a planner. This is just a planner video. We're here to discuss planning. Planning is the lens through which we're analyzing my life right now. So again, just want to make that clear. So I wasn't using a planner, yet I was perhaps the busiest I have ever been. I moved across the country by myself. I was going to college full time. I worked a part-time job. I was, like, juggling a long-distance relationship, and I was pursuing my hobbies, like writing and YouTube. I was doing a lot, and I had a lot to keep track of, and yet planning was a very perfunctory thing for me. I was using, or rather, I had I owned a cheap, like, UIUC planner that I bought at the school bookstore, mostly just because I liked having a planner, but I hardly used it, and when I did use it, it didn't have an impact on my productivity. Fast forward to mid to late 2022, and I am the most anxious and least productive I've ever been, and I am using Hobonichi Cousin religiously. Like, this is a planner with weeklies, monthlies, dailies, a yearly overview, whatever. It's massive, right? And I'm using it religiously. And listen, like I was so proud of myself for being consistent with my planner. I have been more consistent with my Hobonichi cousin for these past 5 months than any planner before. Like, and like that felt like an achievement in and of itself. And to an extent, I took that consistency to mean that I was doing well, that I was making like progress, for lack of a better term. Like, I had this reasonable expectation that this productivity tool I was using was making me more productive. But in reality, I was deeply unwell. I wasn't writing, I wasn't creating, period. And I was floundering as far as like holding down a job, finding a career, that sort of thing. I was sleeping excessively and I was oscillating between extreme apathy and crippling anxiety. And again, this is and was the result of different deeper issues. My point just being that my daily use of my planner was masking said issues. What I have since realized is that I was using my planner to overthink and overplan my life, and that failing time and time again to follow through on these plans I made for myself only compounded my pre-existing anxiety and depression. I was setting myself up for failure at a time when I was most emotionally fragile and thus least able to cope with failure. I created this like vicious cycle wherein I planned, I failed to follow through on my plans, I hated myself for failing to follow through, and then I would create a new plan to escape that self-hatred. This occurred on both the macro level and the micro level. So on the macro level, we have goal planning on a monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis. I was constantly like trying new goal setting systems like Moxie Life or HB90, and I was like setting goals and then reevaluating them to set new ones, and on and on. I wasted countless hours trying to clarify my ambitions and to like strategize how to reach them. And of course, if I took all of those hours I spent planning my weeks, my months, my years, if I took all those hours I spent plotting my future and simply did something, I would be way closer to my goals than I am. But it's easier to think about how to do something than it is to actually do it, and that is like the cycle I had created and was stuck in. On the micro level, we have daily planning, which is where the Hobonichi cousin really comes into play. It's an A5 book, so there is obviously a lot of space to fill, and like I never pressured myself to fill the pages completely, but on days when I was anxious or I was avoiding doing something, I inevitably filled the page. For example, for like a while, I had a really stressful, extremely ill-fitting job that made my anxiety worse than I honestly thought it, like, knew it could be. I've since left, but when my anxiety was debilitating to the point that I couldn't like respond to emails or complete simple tasks, I would try to spur myself to action by writing these like really granular to-do lists, or by rearranging like the order in which I wanted to complete all of these tasks that scared me. Additionally, I would try to like journal through my anxious thoughts. So if I were super anxious about sending an email, for example, then I would journal on the daily page in that free space, really interrogating my anxiety and trying to figure out like why I felt so scared or what I could do to overcome that fear. Like my anxiety was like truly paralyzing, and addressing it on paper seemed like a good idea. And like, it's not bad advice. Like, this is a strategy you might hear from a therapist. Like, journaling through like anxious thoughts is not uncommon. Confronting like limiting beliefs with positive affirmations, which is another thing I did, is hugely popular on YouTube. Writing granular to-do lists and like breaking big tasks into its smallest components is common advice for people who struggle with executive dysfunction. But for me, addressing my anxiety on the page served only to solidify it and to prolong it. Writing to-do lists was an exercise in futility. I knew what I needed to do, and writing it down only put more space between me and the task. It enabled me to avoid the sources of my anxiety. And as I said, for me, the only way to cure my anxiety is to do whatever is making me anxious. And it's like, it's a tough pill to swallow, and it's something I have to remind myself of constantly, but it is completely and utterly true. There is no shortcut for me. If an English paper, for example, is making me anxious, creating an outline or rereading that source material does not alleviate the anxiety. Only sitting down and actually writing the paper will. I must do exactly what is making me anxious. I can't do things around it. And nothing else works. I cannot think my way out of anxiety, no matter how hard I try. I must take action. And for the past 5 months or whatever, writing those to-do lists, journaling about my anxiety, plotting out like my ideal weekly routine, setting monthly goals, like all of that felt like taking action. But in actuality, my planner was merely creating this illusion of productivity. So this is how I am changing my approach to planning for 2023 to think less and do more. For starters, I am downsizing from a Hobonichi cousin to a regular Hobonichi Weeks. Obviously, the Weeks is a much smaller planner, and I will spend less time in my planner because there is simply less for me to work with. I can't procrastinate as effectively in a smaller book that offers less real estate. Next, and perhaps most importantly, I am doing away with daily planning altogether. So the Weeks does not have daily pages, but at the start of 2022, I bullet journaled like Lindsay Scribbles style in the notes pages of the Hobonichi Weeks Mega. And although I am using a Weeks again in 2023, I will not be rapid logging at all. I will have a singular weekly to-do list on the right-hand side of the weekly layouts, and when I get to a task, I get to it. Assigning a task to a specific day does not make me more or less likely to complete it on that day, so what's the point of assigning it in the first place? If I am holding too many tasks in my head at once, I will write them on a sticky note. So like what I mean by that is occasionally I will have like a lot of tasks that I want to complete in a short period of time. Like I need to shower, make tea, cancel my Netflix subscription, check the mail, respond to a text, and like request an Amazon refund. And that is a short, quick list of easy tasks that I can knock out in like half an hour. And if I'm worried that I'm going to forget in that half hour what exactly I wanted to get done, then I can write it down on a sticky note. But that is it for daily planning. In a similar vein, I will not be breaking tasks down into their component parts to mitigate executive dysfunction. I do experience executive dysfunction, as I have talked about before, but I think that my executive dysfunction is like anxiety-based. I think it kicks in when my anxiety is so all-consuming that my mind kind of goes blank and stays that way. Breaking down tasks into their component parts, creating granular to-do lists does not address that issue for me, so it's not a solution I will be turning to any longer. Next, I will not be assigning myself writing tasks, nor setting daily, weekly, or monthly goals regarding my writing. I know that I want and need to write, so I gain nothing by making a task out of it. As far as like writing goals go, I do want to finish my first draft within a generous time frame, and that is enough for me. I don't need to strategize any further. This next one is a weird to explain, but I will do my best, and it is that I am going to stop brainstorming and also like mind mapping, free writing, stream of consciousness writing, anything that is related to like writing compulsively. So like in addition to the A5 daily page, I would also journal or brain dump on loose leaf paper that I kept in my Hobonichi cover. And I have always, in addition to that, kept what I refer to as a bullshit notebook. This is just a notebook that I use carelessly, like it might as well be a bunch of scrap paper. And I just write anything I want on it, any thoughts that I want to get out of my head, I write them in this bullshit notebook. I have done this for years, but unfortunately for me, a lot of the time those thoughts that are running through my head that I want to get out on paper are related to productivity, to planning, to figuring out like the best way to live my life, that sort of thing. And that is just something I think about compulsively. It's exhausting, and writing about it doesn't help, and I'm just gonna stop doing it. I think it's much more effective for me to just redirect my thoughts, think about something else, sort of move on from that topic, than it is to try to like expel it on paper, because clearly that doesn't work. I've implemented this with my writing in general. I've stopped thinking about my story, like that is like plotting and brainstorming my story, and I am instead just writing the manuscript. Likewise, with YouTube, I have stopped thinking about how best to make a video and really just tried to like start filming, even if the final result doesn't meet the maximum potential of the video. So again, less thinking, more doing in all areas of my life, honestly, and I've been really focusing on this for like 2 weeks now, I want to say, and maybe like a week and a half. Anyway, in the short term, it's been effective, so I have high hopes for the future. Next, I am trying to separate my creativity from my planning in general. I might make a video talking about this more in depth, but suffice it to say, I think that pairing my creativity with my ability to complete tasks is a bad idea, and I will be exploring some other creative outlets. Specifically, I aim to spend more time in my actual journal, as well as like sketching, painting, and reading. I like and like respect planning as a hobby, but I think it's bad for me, and I'm done like turning my to-do lists into art projects. Next, in a similar vein, I am not demanding consistency with planning. It's clear to me now that I don't rely upon my planner the way others might, and that's okay. I'm not any better or worse for it. It's just, it's helpful occasionally, but most of the time I'm really good about knowing what I need to do and more or less the order in which it should be done, and I don't really need to keep track of things again the way that others might, and that's okay. I like stationery, I like planning, and if I want to do it, albeit within these limits I'm setting for myself, then that's cool, but I can quit at any time without guilt. Like that is, I can't buy a different planner, but I can stop and start using this one as I see fit. Planning consistently is cool, but it's not a virtue, and I need to stop thinking of it as one. Finally, I am not setting any goals for 2023. Sort of. Again, I think I'll make another video about this, but in short, I don't think I need structured goals and goal planning, just like I don't think I really need planning in general. It hurts, goal planning specifically, hurts me far more than it helps. As I said, it makes me really anxious, it sets me up for failure, and it doesn't actually help me to get anything done. It doesn't make it easier for me to complete my goals. So yeah, I am trying my best to be kind to myself this upcoming year, to just let myself like live, and I'm trying to trust that I am doing and will do what needs to be done. So, okay, that is all for me today. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was probably a longer video, and I hope it was helpful or at least interesting to hear. I don't know to what extent this is like a relatable topic. Also, I'm so sorry, the like air quotes are out of control today. I just can't stop doing it. So anyway, you are welcome to like the video and subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined. Bye!